Billionaire discovers twin girls with suitcases alone in park, their incredible journey revealed. Mark was the king of the concrete jungle, a billionaire whose skyscrapers stretched toward the sky, imposing shadows over everything below. Yet, on that sunny afternoon in Chicagoland, with kids giggling and mothers sharing laughter in the park, the soft whispers of normalcy pulled him in. He hadn't anticipated that a simple walk could unravel the very fabric of what he thought was a successful life. As he strolled, the brilliant sun glinted off his designer watch, a constant reminder of time, money, and the deals yet to close. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he spotted them. Two twin girls, Lily and Rose, perched silently on a bench, their small suitcases worn and frayed, tapping at the ground as if they contained the weight of their dreams. Their eyes were pools of innocence, reflecting fears that transcended their years. Mark was captivated. "What are you doing here, little ladies?" he asked, crouching down to their eye level. The innocence in their gaze struck him hard, a raw contrast to the polished confidence he wore daily. Lily fidgeted with the hem of her dress, her voice barely a whisper. We ran away from a troubled home, searching for something better." Their spirits whispered hope. Mark's chest tightened. Memories of his own childhood, a time when happiness was as simple as a family picnic, flooded his mind. What would it be like to feel cornered like these girls? In a world where victories were measured in dollars and deals, a forgotten truth bloomed before him. Life isn't about money but about resilience. Here, knee-deep in his self-indulgent existence, stood two brave souls fighting for a better tomorrow. Mark didn't just feel for them, he admired them. Suddenly, it dawned on him, he was standing at a crossroads. Should he extend his hand to these lost girls or slip back into his safe, gilded cage of privilege? He fumbled for words, conflict stirring within, when emotions swelled as Lily spoke of home of shadows and silence. Treated as less than, they didn't need just shelter. They needed a champion. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as Mark began to fathom the enormity of the moment, another twist rippled through the air. The twins seemed to study him with a knowing look. "You look familiar," Rose said softly. The revelation clanged like a bell. The world around him dimmed as profound disbelief washed over him. Could they be tied to him beyond mere circumstance? The idea sent his heart racing faster than any business deal ever had. The sun dipped lower in the sky, bathing the park in golden hues. Mark felt the gravitational pull of truth tugging at him. He was on the brink of discovering not merely their stories, but his own hidden lineage woven in family history long forgotten. Could he truly leave the world of suits and ties to embrace the messy, beautiful complexities of life with these girls? As shadows lengthened, he was faced with a question that demanded an answer, a choice that could not only change their lives, but redefine the man he had become. Would he choose to lay aside his wealth and ego to embrace love and responsibility? With hearts pounding and futures uncertain, the park grew silent around them. The decision hung in the air, a whisper eager for resolution. The clock was ticking, and Mark knew, deep in his soul, that something monumental was about to unfold. Mark's heart raced as the weight of the moment pressed down upon him. The golden light of the setting sun cast long shadows through the park, yet all he could see were the twin girls staring back at him wide-eyed and expectant. "Familiar?" he echoed, his voice barely rising above a whisper, the world around him beginning to fade. The girl's eyes searched his with a depth that threatened to swallow him whole. Who were they really? Why did they seem to hold a thread of his past? "What do you mean?" The question hung heavy in the air, and as he asked it, he felt a strange connection, one he couldn't fully understand yet. Lily and Rose exchanged glances that spoke volumes, fear intermingling with something else, a flicker of hope, perhaps? Rose tugged at her sister's sleeve. "You're the man from the pictures," she said, her small voice quivering slightly, sounding almost accusatory. "The one we're supposed to find." Mark's breath hitched. Pictures? What pictures? Memories of his childhood danced at the edge of his mind. He had grown up with a family, a set that once made him feel loved and cherished. But those days were long past, overshadowed by the weight of expectations and the relentless pursuit of wealth. Had he left pieces of himself behind, fragments scattered like breadcrumbs leading to him? "I don't understand." "What do you mean?" he asked once more, fighting the rising panic. Lily looked down at her suitcase, as if seeking courage from within. "Our mom. She said you could help us. She said we had to come find you." Mark's mind raced. Did they know something he didn't? Could these girls be linked to a part of his life he thought was buried forever? A twinge of guilt wrapped itself around his heart, squeezing tightly. For all his success, could he really be their savior? "What's your mom's name?" Mark found himself asking, thinking it may unlock something, a way to help them. Perhaps a way back to the child he used to be. "Her name is Hannah," Rose replied. The name washed over him like a wave, warm and familiar, evoking whispers of laughter from hazy family gatherings. But memories began to dissolve, flitting through his mind like autumn leaves against a chilling breeze. What had happened to Hannah? Why couldn't he remember her clearly? Suddenly, the playground behind them erupted with laughter. A child chased another, oblivious to the turmoil swirling in Mark's heart. The twins remained tethered to him, their gaze steady, unyielding. "Hannah is my mother?" Mark spoke the words before he truly realized it. As if a dam had broken, memories flooded back: his mother's gentle touch, the warmth of her embrace, the longing when he was taken away. The girls were tied to his past in a way he never expected. Mark didn't know what to feel: anger, sadness, or an inexplicable pull toward these brave little souls. They were lost, yet fiercely resilient. Just like him, they were reaching for something better. He could feel the pull of something larger than himself bursting forth in a sudden flood of clarity. "I will help you," he said finally, the decision solidifying within his chest. The conviction in his voice surprised even him. Just then, the sky transitioned to darker hues, and a chill settled around them. As shadows deepened, Mark clenched his fists. He had never felt more uncertain, yet more determined. "Where do we start?" he asked, a question laced with urgency. Lily looked up at him, her voice steady. "We need to go home first. To get her. We have to make her proud." Mark felt a pang in his heart. Going home meant facing the past. But was he ready to uncover the secrets that lay buried and explore the depths of his own lineage with the twins beside him? Before he could answer, a holler rose from out of sight, and something in the air shifted. Encouragement? Danger? He couldn't tell. But as the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, one thing became clear. This journey with Lily and Rose would change everything. And as darkness descended, Mark was left with the haunting whisper of hope as the first brick in the wall of his past began to crumble. What awaited them just beyond the horizon? Mark took a deep breath as the last rays of sun disappeared, swallowed by the night. The park, a place he used to visit as a child, felt foreign, yet oddly familiar. Beside him, Lily and Rose were his anchors, the twins whose gentle yet imploring gazes stirred something deep within him. "Let us go then," he said, fighting through the uncertainty that tinged each word. He wanted to sound confident for them, but felt the weight of his own unresolved past pressing down like a heavy fog. The girls took a step closer, their trust in him evident, and somehow it made him feel a little braver. Together, they walked toward the exit, the crunch of leaves under their feet breaking the silence of the cool evening. The world felt bigger, their shadows stretching out behind them as if the past was reaching out, just out of grasp. Mark couldn't shake the thought that he had left something important behind, but the girls were a beacon guiding him home. "Where do you live?" he asked, trying to keep the conversation moving. Knowing their destination felt essential, like a roadmap toward the truth. "Our home is near the old church," Lily replied, her voice tinged with both nostalgia and apprehension. is not far from here. Do you have family there? Rose looked at the ground and whispered, just Mom. And she hasn't been herself lately. The gravity behind her words didn't escape him. It was as if the weight of the world rested on her small shoulders. A sense of urgency washed over Mark. Let us hurry then, he urged, a spark igniting within him. Perhaps they could find Hannah, their mother, and somehow his past all at once. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything was intertwined like threads in a tapestry. As they walked, he listened carefully to the twins, allowing their stories to envelop him. They spoke of simpler times, memories of family dinners and movie nights, mirroring snippets of his own hazy recollections. Each joy they recalled felt like a bittersweet reminder of what had been lost. Once they turned down the dimly lit street, a tingle of recognition sparked. The corner cafe, the bakery with its sweet scent wafting through the air, it was all familiar, yet so distant. A knot formed in his stomach, uncertainty mixing with hope. What would they find at the old church? Soon, they reached the weathered building perched on the edge of their neighborhood. It seemed larger than he remembered, its towering spire stretching toward the night sky. A light flickered from inside, barely illuminating the path ahead. Is that where your mom is? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Lily nodded, her expression shifting from determination to anxiety. She's usually inside waiting, but sometimes she forgets. Mark's heart sank. Forgets? Rose nodded solemnly. She has bad days. Days when she doesn't recognize us at all. That's why we need you. Every instinct within him urged him to turn back. Could he really help them? What if he encountered a version of Hannah he no longer recognized? But looking down at the twins, their innocent faces filled with hope, he felt resolve grow within him, stronger than the fear gnawing at his gut. We'll tackle it together, he said, gripping each of their hands. Promise. We face whatever comes next together. The girls squeezed his hands tightly, trust radiating through their small grasp. As they approached the church's entrance, the flickering light called to them like an open door to a world he had thought was closed off forever. As the door creaked open, revealing the dim interior, they stepped inside, the soft aroma of incense filling the air. But as they crossed the threshold, a shadow moved in the back, a figure hunched over. A soft, broken voice echoed, a fragile whisper cloaked in shadows. Is that you? It called, uncertainty hanging in the air. Mark froze, fear and anticipation swirling within him. Could it be Hannah? Would she remember him? Just as he took a step forward, a flash of something dark flitted through his mind, another question lingering. What if this encounter shattered everything he thought he knew? The moment hung heavy, and he braced himself, the weight of revelations pressing down as he stepped deeper into the light. What had he returned to, and what other secrets awaited him in the soft glow of the church? Mark's heart raced in the stillness. As he took a cautious step toward the shadowy figure, he squinted, trying to make out the features hidden in the dim light. The figure's back was hunched, and the flickering bulb overhead cast wavering shadows that danced like ghosts along the walls. Is that you, Hannah? He ventured, his voice barely breaking through the silence. The name felt foreign yet familiar on his tongue, a soft echo from a life he thought he'd lost. The figure turned slowly, the soft glow revealing a face lined with worry and age that Mark didn't remember. It was her, a woman he had once loved deeply. But she looked so different now. Her eyes held a distant, vacant gaze. A flicker of recognition darted across her features, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Mark, she breathed, the name a whisper filled with uncertainty and confusion. Yeah, it's me, he said, hoping to connect. He stepped closer, his hands still clasping the twins' small ones, grounding himself in their presence. I've come back. Back? Hannah blinked, the word hanging in the air like spun sugar. Where have you been? It's okay, Mom. Lily chimed in cautiously, her voice gentle. Mark is here to help us. Hannah's brows knit together with worry, a flicker of recognition breaking through the fog. Mark felt his chest tighten. He knew this was the moment. Not just for the twins but for himself too. He had to reach her, to piece together the fragments of the past and pull her back to the present. As he stepped forward, Mark thought about all the years he had been away, battling his own demons while Hannah faced hers. The guilt washed over him like a cold wave, difficult to shake off. His heart ached at the sight of her, so fragile and lost. "Can you tell me how you've been?" he asked softly, his tone laced with concern. "Oh, Hannah murmured, brushing aside the remnants of old memories with a slight wave of her hand. "Days blend together. Sometimes it's hard to remember," Mom Rose said, stepping closer. "We need you. We've missed you." Tears pooled in her eyes, earnest and pleading. Hannah's gaze darted between the twins and Mark. Confusion etched across her face. "It's just I try so hard to remember. But everything feels fuzzy. I forget faces, and I forget you." The weight of her words sent a jolt through Mark. How could he help when even she felt lost? "You don't have to remember everything right now," he said gently, willing every ounce of sincerity into his voice. "What matters is that we're here now, together." As the silence crept back in, Mark felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility growing. He wanted to reach her, to bridge the gap that years had torn apart. But fear bubbled beneath the surface. What if he failed? "Can we start over?" Mark offered, desperation creeping in. "We can make new memories. I'm here for you, all of you." Hannah's expression softened momentarily. She reached out, hesitantly touching Rose's cheek. "But I might mess it all up." "Everyone messes up," Mark replied, his resolve hardening. "But it's okay. We're a family. We'll figure it out together." Just then, a sudden noise broke the charged moment, an unexpected bang that reverberated through the church. It startled them all, drawing Hannah's attention away as her expression shifted back to anxiety. "Who's there?" she echoed, her uncertainty returning. Mark's heart pounded. They weren't alone. He turned swiftly toward the sound, his protective instincts kicking in. "What was that?" he whispered, reality crashing around him. The air grew colder, and an unsettling feeling crept up his spine. Suddenly, the flickering light above them blinked erratically. Mark glanced at the twins, their faces pale with fear. Whatever lay ahead felt more uncertain than ever. As he prepared himself to confront whatever darkness loomed outside, he wondered if this was just the beginning of the unfolding chaos. In this fragile moment, would they all band together, or would past shadows tear them apart once again? The defying silence hung in the air, tension thick as Mark strained to listen. There it was again, a soft scuffle, followed by a low murmur, too muted to discern. He turned back to Hannah, who now appeared to retreat deeper into herself, like a flower closing tightly at the onset of a storm. "We need to stay together," Mark urged, tension tightening his voice. The twins clung to one another, eyes wide and glistening. Mark reached for them, pulling them closer. "Whatever's out there, we'll face it as a team," he assured them, even as uncertainty gnawed at his heart. "Mark, I don't want to lose you again." Hannah's voice wavered, fragile like a thread on the edge of snapping. "Please, I don't want to be alone." "You're not alone. We're a family," he reiterated, willing her to trust him. He didn't understand it yet, but there was something critically wrong. The shadows around them felt alive, watching, waiting. Suddenly, the light above dimmed again before flickering wildly. Mark's eyes darted to the entrance of the church, where the darkened doorway loomed ominously. Each thud of his heart echoed louder, accompanied by the pounding of his instincts to protect them. "Stay close," he whispered to the twins. He edged toward the entrance, breathing in deeply. There was comfort in the idea of needing to protect them, even as fear threatened to paralyze him. With courage he hadn't planned to muster, he took the first step toward the doorway. Just then, from somewhere deeper in the recesses of the church, a loud crash resonated, sending a wave of cold dread down his spine. The twins shrieked softly, pressing against Hannah, who murmured reassurances that sounded hollow against the rising tension. Maybe we should just leave?" Lily suggested, a tremor in her voice. Hannah shook her head. "No, we can't. We have to face this, whatever it is." Mark couldn't believe her resolve. It grounded him. They were all scared, but collectively, They could channel that fear into something stronger. Summoning every ounce of bravery, Mark stepped closer to the door. I'll check it out. Just stay here, okay? Before anyone could protest, he took another step, pushing the heavy door open a crack. A gust of wind rushed in, carrying with it a whisper of leaves rustling outside. Yet the surrounding stillness suggested something was off. It felt like stepping into a different world, a world bursting with secrets. Hold on, he said breathlessly, glancing back at Hannah, who seemed to draw strength from her children. As Mark's feet crossed the threshold into the unknown, the church groaned behind him, the sound almost foreboding. Just as he stepped outside, he stopped short. There, hidden behind a broken stone, was a figure. A child, small and shivering, with wide, frightened eyes that mirrored the twins' fear. Hey, Mark called out, adrenaline rushing through his veins. Are you okay? The child flinched but didn't budge. Mark's heart sank at the sight. He realized that the chaos he feared wasn't just in the church. It was everywhere, ranging beyond the dim shadows. What's your name? He asked softly, taking a step closer. You're not alone. We're here. As the child began to speak, the shrill sound of sirens echoed in the distance, reaching for their hearts with urgency. The turmoil beyond the church walls heightened his anxiety. He could feel the intensity of future choices weighing on him. Felt like everything was converging. Mark had come home to find his family, and now a stranger was reaching out, drawing them into a storm not of their making. Hannah's voice sliced through the air with a mixture of hope and fear. What's happening? As the child hesitated, Mark waited, knowing whatever lay ahead could redefine everything. What did this child know? And how far would he have to go to protect his family in this chaotic haze? In that moment, he realized this was just the beginning. The stakes were rising, and nothing was clear. Would they uncover the truth before being swallowed by the darkness? But then, from somewhere behind them, the voice of another shattered the night, a low, chilling laugh that would echo in their memories forever. Mark's heart raced as the laugh echoed ominously into the night, a sound that cut through the air like a knife. It wasn't just laughter. It was taunting, a whisper of malice that hung heavy between them. He turned slowly, scanning the dimly lit surroundings for the source. Shadows danced like phantoms just beyond his vision, and he felt a shiver crawl up his spine. Stay close, he barked instinctively, bringing the twins tighter to him. The frightened child in front of him looked as lost as they felt. Mark's protective instincts kicked in. He couldn't afford to lose any of them to whatever lurking danger awaited. Who's there? Hannah's voice trembled beside him, but there was a steely edge beneath her fear. Mark marveled, in that instant, at her courage. It was both ugly and beautiful, just like life itself. Together, they stood on the verge of confronting an unseen threat, formed like a barrier between their past sorrows and the potential future that shinned like a faint light ahead. From the darkness, the figure emerged. A tall man, his face obscured by shadows, strode forward with eyes gleaming in the faint light seeping from the church. You think you can just walk away? He taunted, a cruel smile stretching across his lips. Mark instinctively stepped forward, shielding Hannah and the twins with his body. Who are you? Mark demanded, fighting the rising panic in his chest. Power wrapped around fear like a vine, but he managed to keep his breathing steady. The adrenaline coursed through him. The man chuckled again, this time low and chilling. Just someone watching, he replied. Someone who values what's about to happen. It all leads to a reckoning. The child in front of Mark whimpered, eyes darting between the man and the looming church, as if sensing the gravity of their situation. Mark crouched down, looking into the child's fearful eyes. What's your name? He asked again, gentler this time. I'm Sam, came the shaky reply. Please, help. Mark's heart tightened as he registered the desperation in the child's voice. We're here for you, Sam, he said, moving even closer, his voice steady like an anchor amid a storm. But we have to stay together. Can you tell me what happened? Sam paused, glancing over at the man who seemed to enjoy the chaos unfolding before him, then spoke in a hushed breath. I was hiding and they found me. I don't know what they want. I just want to go home. The laugh echoed back, filling Mark with an urgency he hadn't felt before. Home is not a place you can return to, boy. It's merely a concept you don't understand yet. Mark clenched his fists, refusing to let the man's words bind his resolve. You don't have to listen to him, Sam. Mark turned slightly to Hannah. We need to leave. Now. Mark, look. Hannah pointed as movement broke through the shadows. More figures emerged, their eyes reflecting the moonlight like a pack of wolves. A swell of panic crested in Mark's chest, threatening to drown him. Run, he shouted, and they took off, hearts pounding against their chests, moving as one. Behind them, the laughter echoed, reverberating through the darkness like a sinister symphony. The world was quickly unraveling around them. As they dashed into the night, Sam knelt down, sobbing softly. I don't want to be alone anymore. Mark knelt beside him, pulling him gently into a hug much like he had with the twins. The urgency of their circumstances faded ever so slightly. You won't be alone, Sam. We'll face this together. But as they looked ahead, the flicker of distant lights caught their attention, and Mark's gut dropped. Was that safety or a trap? The darkness around them felt alive, pulsing as they pressed on into the unknown. Stay with me, Mark urged, feeling the weight of every step. The old church stood behind them, a fortress they thought they had left, but it loomed large in their minds. What awaited them in the shadows? And would they find the strength to confront the chaos threatening to swallow them whole? Mark squinted into the distance, where the lights flickered like fireflies against the oppressive darkness. Fear clawed at his insides, but he forced himself to swallow it down. The sight of those distant sparkles could mean salvation, but his instinct screamed that they could also lead them straight into danger. He had to decide quickly. Are we near town? He asked, keeping his voice soothing, wanting to ward off panic in all of them, especially Sam. The little boy didn't seem to hear him, lost in his own world of fear and uncertainty. Hannah grasped his arm tightly, looking up at him with wide eyes that reflected her own worries. We can't let them catch us, Mark. Not again. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but her determination shone bright in stark contrast to the shadows around them. Together, Mark repeated, echoing his earlier words. Just hold on to each other. He took Sam's hand, intertwining it with Hannah's and the twins as they pressed on, moving swiftly towards the glimmering lights, their steps matching the rapid beat of their hearts. As they ran, the laughter grew fainter, but the threat didn't fade, resting heavily on Mark's shoulders. Every rustle of leaves sent a wave of adrenaline through him. He turned occasionally, half expecting to see those men from the church pursuing them, their eyes gleaming like the wolves they resembled. But there was only darkness and hope. Mark, one of the twins called, tugging at his sleeve. What if they're waiting for us? What if it's a trap? Mark caught his breath, weighing the boy's words. The thought had crossed his mind more than once. We've gotten this far, haven't we? We'll find out together. If it is a trap, we'll outsmart them. They stumbled ahead, the group beginning to tire, but fueled by the sense of urgency that overcame them. As they drew closer, the lights took shape. An old diner, neon lighting flickering in and out like a dying star. The sign creaked eerily above them, an invitation intertwined with a warning. They reached the door, and Mark hesitated for just a moment. Could they trust the safety inside? But as he glanced back into the dark, he felt that familiar surge of protectiveness envelop him. Let us go. The interior was surprisingly warm, filled with the smell of fried food and sweet coffee. Few patrons dotted the booths. Weary faces turned to meet them as they entered. An older waitress looked over, her expression shifting from surprise to concern. Are you kids all right? She asked, her voice laced with kindness, yet probing. Mark tried to catch his breath and speak, but he found he was too shaken to offer an answer. He began, but his words faltered under the weight of their shared terror. Hannah stepped forward, determination etched into her features. We're just scared. Can we stay here? The waitress took in their disheveled appearance, the lingering tremors of fear etched into their faces. Of course, dear, she replied, glancing towards the back of the diner as if she could sense the darkness that trailed them. You can wait until your parents come for you. Mark's heart sank at the mentioning of parents. Sam's small hand quivered in his own. We don't know where they are, the waitress frowned, clearly hearing the unspoken horror in those words. You kids can stay here for a bit. I'll get you some water. She hurried off, her footsteps echoing in their ears. Mark's knees felt weak, releasing the tension that had built up. It was a strange mix of relief and sorrow that washed over him, intertwining with the laughter that still echoed in his mind. Were they safe, or merely postponing their fate? What do we do now? Sam asked, eyes wide and glistening. Mark took a deep breath, staring into the reflective diner walls. He didn't have all the answers, but he knew one thing: he wouldn't let fear take them down. We'll figure it out, together. Yet the unease lingered, gnawing at the edges of his mind. They had escaped one danger, but what if a greater threat awaited them within these walls? As they sipped the water, the waitress returned with the diner door swung open and his heart sank. A figure stood silhouetted against the outside lights, scanning the room, unmistakably searching for them. Who was it? Mark's heart raced again, a warning bell clanging inside him. Everything hinged on this moment. What would their next move be? The figure stepped inside, the door creaking behind it like a heavy weight dropping into silence. Mark's heart thudded hard, pounding against his ribcage in a frantic rhythm. He turned his focus from the stranger to the kids, praying for calm while dread tinged the air. Hannah noticed the change in his demeanor, her gaze darting from Mark to the shadowy figure now framed in the harsh diner lights. Whispers spread among the patrons, nervous whispers that twisted and curled like smoke. Mark, she breathed, her voice trembling. Stay close, he commanded softly, forcing strength into his words. His eyes scoured the diner, searching for anything he could use as a shield. The waitress bustled back with a tray of water, oblivious to the tension that crackled through the air. The figure's face illuminated as it stepped further in. Mark recognized him instantly, the man from the church. His harsh features were unmistakable. Fear gripped at Mark's throat, but he forced it down. Look at me, he whispered urgently to the kids, clutching their hands tighter. When I say go, we'll run. Just follow me, no matter what. The man's gaze swept the diner, sizing up the room. He didn't seem rushed, more a predator savoring the moment. The waitress, sensing something amiss, approached him with a tentative smile. Can I help you, sir? Have you seen any kids come through here? His voice, if anything, amused Mark. It felt falsely kind, underlined with layered intent. They're just kids. We don't have, the waitress stammered. But the man interrupted with a hand raised, and her voice faltered. Seems you do. Maybe you should consider how best to protect them. He nodded in the direction of Mark and the others. His presence was like an ice bath that shocked Mark's veins, stirring anger and fear to new heights. Get away from them. Mark stepped forward, instincts kicking in. The children instinctively huddled behind him. Even Sam's bravado faded. Easy now, the man said, an unsettling smile spreading across his face. You can't run forever, my friend. We just want to talk to them. Mark felt a ripple of dread washing over him. There was no talking, they knew what had happened before. The diner door swung open again, and a gust of cold air swept through. A stranger entered, cloaked in shadows, their features obscured. Mark's heart raced again, not knowing if they were friend or foe. Mark, this voice was softer, familiar, cut through the chaos, and his heart flipped. Rachel, he called out, peering into the dim light. She was a friend from the neighborhood, someone he thought was lost forever. Hope flickered in his chest like a flame struggling against the wind. Mark, I've been looking for you. Rachel rushed towards him, her wide eyes darting between the man and the kids, recognizing the tension. What's wrong? Before he could answer, the man's smile faded into focus. So there are more of you than I thought. Get away from them. Rachel stepped forward protectively, glaring at the man. The tension in the diner thickened, every person frozen in place, their eyes locked on the unfolding drama. Time to go. Mark's voice was a mere whisper, but his heart screamed for action. At that moment, the diner's phone rang, slicing through the stillness like glass shattering. The waitress answered hesitantly, her mouth moving silently as she listened. Mark held his breath, holding the kids tighter. He could feel them tremble against him. The stranger's eyes flickered to the waitress, and in that instant, she nodded. Mark knew it was now or never. "Run," he shouted, whirling around to face the twins. "Get to the door. Now." The kids surged forward, fear propelling them like arrows loosed from a bow. But as they fled, the man lunged towards them, determination glinting in his eyes. Would he catch them? Mark had to choose: stay and fight for the twins or save them. The choice loomed like a dark shadow over him. Would he risk it all against overwhelming odds? Just as that thought rushed through his mind, Rachel turned, taking a step toward Mark. "Go," she yelled, suddenly determined, her eyes fierce. Mark took one last look at the kids, pumping courage into his own heart. They could do this. They had to. Then, silhouettes began to spill out of shadows in the diner. You couldn't tell if they were allies or enemies, but in a matter of moments, the entire situation could spiral out of control. What would happen if they got caught? He felt the weight of the choice, deciding whether to lead them into an uncertain escape or confront an emerging threat head-on. Could he stand and fight? Or was it already too late? Mark's mind raced as he watched the twins dart toward the door. The diner exploded in chaos, screams mingling with clattering dishes as patrons scrambled to make sense of the madness. "Stop them," the man barked, lunging forward. But Rachel stepped into his path, fierce as a lioness. "You won't touch them." Every muscle in Mark's body screamed to move, yet he felt as if he were frozen in place, torn between protecting the kids and the mounting danger from the man. The kids already rushed outside, propelled by fear, while Rachel matched the man's intensity. "Come on, Mark," she yelled, and that snapped him back to the present. He couldn't afford to hesitate any longer. Mark turned, heart thudding in his chest, and sprinted after the twins, desperately praying they wouldn't slow down or look back. The cold air bit at his skin, but adrenaline pumped through his veins, warming him with urgency. He could barely register the diner's flickering neon sign as he burst through the door. Outside, the world felt both vivid and surreal. It was dusk, shadows stretching long on the pavement. He spotted Hannah and Sam at the edge of the parking lot, panting and wide-eyed. "Keep running," Mark shouted, not caring if there was anyone left inside the diner. The sound of footsteps behind him solidified his urgency. The man. He didn't know how close he was but could feel the heat of his pursuit. "Get to the trees," he yelled, pointing toward the outskirts of the parking lot, where a cluster of sturdy oak trees loomed, offering a brief sense of safety. Hannah and Sam stumbled but kept moving, chasing down the path as Mark urged them on. Would they really make it? He dared to glance back. Rachel was still confronting the man, eyes locked defiantly. Mark's chest tightened as he saw the man's hand shoot out, grasping at her, but she sidestepped, adrenaline driving her determination. "Go," she shouted to him, her own escape a sacrifice. Every instinct in Mark recoiled at the thought of leaving her. She was risking everything for them, but there was no time. "Mark, please." Sam's voice broke through, the fear palpable. With a powerful resolve, Mark steadied himself, knowing he had to lead. They pushed through the trees, branches scraping their skin, but the dull thud of footsteps seemed to fade behind them. They reached a thicket, crouching down to catch their breath, heartbeats thrumming loud as they listened for safety. The sound of rustling leaves surrounded them, but it wasn't just the forest. The man could still be on their trail. "Are we safe?" Hannah whispered, fear evident in her wide eyes. Mark swallowed hard. "I don't know yet. We just need to stay quiet." The twins squeezed his hands, looking to him like he was their anchor in a storm. He too felt like he was holding on by a thread. A part of him wanted to run back to find Rachel, but he couldn't risk them all. If they could just plan, but what could he possibly do against the shadow of fear that loomed? As the silence stretched on, a sound broke through. Not distant footsteps, but a deep rumble, a truck engine idling somewhere close by. Mark's heart sank. If it was the stranger or someone connected, they'd have nowhere left to hide. Listen, he whispered urgently, we might have to move again. Hannah clenched his hand tighter. What do we do? Mark breathed in deeply, weighing each option. They could edge forward and look for a way around, or risk staying here until whoever it was left. He dared to listen harder, trying to read the sound of the truck. Was it getting closer or backing away? Before he could decide, the hum of an engine shifted. Suddenly, shouts erupted from the direction of the diner. Rachel! Mark whispered, pain lacerating his heart anew. Fear clawed at him as he considered going back. But it could mean losing everything. Could he really leave Rachel behind? Mark, what do we do? Sam's voice trembled with urgency. What if we? Mark began, but the question faintly lingered in the air, wrapped in the tension of uncertain danger. The shadows deepened around them. What would happen next? Would the twins be safe? Or would he face his worst fear, that they weren't as alone as they hoped? Mark crouched deeper into the thicket, heart racing, mind spinning. The world outside felt dangerous, raw, a stark contrast to how serene everything had felt just an hour ago. He could hear their breaths mixing, tiny, anxious sighs filled with uncertainty. Rachel, he whispered, feeling a weight pressing down on him, like a black cloud shadowing every thought. She had put herself in harm's way for them. His heart swelled with gratitude and guilt all at once. He couldn't shake the image of her facing that man, standing strong when everything was at stake. But here, in the shadows, the twins' wide eyes pulled him back to reality. Mark, are we safe? Lily's voice trembled with fear, aching to be soothed. Just stay quiet, Mark replied, voice steady despite the chaos churning inside him. He scanned the treeline, knowing that lurking danger was close, and they could be caught at any moment. The sound of the truck engine rumbled again, revving loudly as it rolled closer. Footsteps followed, and Mark could feel his heart thundering against his ribs. What if they find us? Rose asked, tears glistening in her eyes. We won't let that happen, Mark replied firmly, trying to give them a sense of security he desperately needed himself. Whatever happens, we stay together. The truck door slammed, sending chills down Mark's spine as muffled voices called out and echoed. He strained to listen, hear anything that could help gauge how close they were to uncovering their hiding place. The shadows danced nervously around them, and Mark's resolve hardened. Suddenly, a shout came from the direction of the diner. They went this way. The voice was sharp, filled with predatory intent. Mark felt his stomach drop. We need to move now. He took a breath, gripping the hands of Lily and Rose so tightly he feared he might hurt them, but he needed them close. They scrambled silently through the underbrush, weaving between the trees as adrenaline surged through them. Each snap of a twig beneath their feet amplified the pounding of Mark's heart. Urgency clawed at their heels. He caught a glimpse of the flickering diner light through the trees, a brief beacon of hope in the dark. We have to get out of range, away from there, he said, glancing towards the sound of the searching voices. We need to find somewhere else to go. They ducked down a narrow path, hidden by thick foliage. Leaves brushed against Mark's arms, each sound echoing like a siren in his ears. He pushed away thoughts of what might happen if they were caught. The urgency to protect his newfound family swallowed him whole. We'll find somewhere to hide, he promised. Somewhere safe. But how far could they run? Mark's legs burned as they sprinted, the adrenaline pushing through him as they stumbled out of the thicket into an open field. A cold wind whipped across their faces, sending shivers down their spines. Stay quiet, he hissed, scanning the surroundings. Felt exposed. We need to find there. Rose pointed to a cluster of abandoned buildings crumbling under time's weight at the edge of the field. What about over there? Mark hesitated. Do you think it's safe? It's better than this, Lily whispered, her eyes wide with terror. "'Kay," he breathed out. "Let us go." They dashed towards the buildings, moving swiftly and silently. As they rounded the base of the structure, the air shifted with a ghostly chill. Their breaths mingled in the cold, a stark reminder of the threat that loomed behind them. Mark pressed against the wall, squeezing the twins' hands, and pulled them into the shadows of an old doorway barely hanging on its hinges. Gritty floorboards beneath their feet were brittle and rotting. They crouched in silence, holding their breath as shouts echoed nearer. "They can't find us," Mark whispered, forcing calm into his voice for the sake of the girls. Time seemed to stretch as every heartbeat thudded like a drum through the oppressive dark. But hope flickered no matter what they faced. They were together. The tight bond forged in moments of trial felt almost electric, an unbreakable thread holding them close. As the voices grew louder, it seemed like more footsteps were closing in. Mark's heart raced, dread seeping into his bones. He chanced to look outside from their shadowed corner. The figures moved through the trees, silhouetted against the dull light, frustration building as they hunted. Mark Lily's voice cracked with whispering despair. "What do we do if they find us?" The question lingered like heavy air. Mark drew a steadying breath, looking into the wide, frightened eyes of the twins. He couldn't afford to falter now. "We'll find a way out together." Just then, the ground shuddered slightly, and he realized their hiding spot might be weaker than they anticipated. "Wait," Mark said, peering more intently toward the entrance. In that moment, everything shifted. A low, cold laugh resounded from outside. "The man. You think you can hide forever?" His voice echoed through the shadows, calm and taunting. A calculated threat that seemed to douse their hope with a frigid chill. Mark felt the girls lean closer to him, their tiny bodies trembling against his. It was then he realized he couldn't let them feel hopeless. He might have felt fear, but he couldn't let it shatter his resolve. But before he could create a plan, an unexpected light flickered in the distance, a flicker of illumination amidst the darkness enveloping them. "Look," Rose gasped, eyes brightening at the sight. Mark squinted, grasping at the glimmer of opportunity. It was a flickering overhead street lamp at the edge of the yard behind the building, just enough visibility. "They could be back," he murmured, but instinct pushed him toward the light. "We have to make a run for it." Indecision churned within him. Could they find safety out there? Felt like a risk, but they had no other choice. "Stick close. No matter what, you stick to me," he said, his voice firm despite the turmoil raging inside. "Okay." They breathed back, the spirit of togetherness bathing them in determination. With a sudden burst of energy, Mark led them through the ruins, the shadows bending around them as they dashed for the light. Each step felt heavy, reverberating through the silent air. Hope surged as they sprinted closer to the street lamp, imagining the warmth of safety it could bring. As they neared, the shadows flickered unervingly, warmth flicking on the edge of the gloom. The laughter fainted until all that remained was a heartbeat's echoing silence. Mark's heart raced, filled with the thrill of urgency and fear. "Run!" he shouted again as they darted for the streetlight's embrace. As the trio broke into the illuminated circle, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders, if only for a moment. And then, just behind them, they heard the footsteps screeching to a halt. The strangers had followed. The children gasped, fear prickling their skin. "Don't turn back," he whispered, looking at their frightened faces, the fire of determination burning in his soul. "Just keep going." They dashed out of the shadows, pumping their legs as fast as they could, pursues hot on their heels, a chase close enough to silence the night. "Don't stop," Mark urged, feeling every ounce of resolve in his chest solidifying. They burst into the open street, passing through the pale moonlight, adrenaline coursing through their limbs. They had to keep moving. As they sprinted toward the next block, the weight of uncertainty morphed into a heartening surge of hope. They could escape. They had to. "Keep moving," Mark shouted again, his voice cutting through the silence. Every possibility felt daunting, but the thought of freedom of family pushed him forward, refusing to waver. Where do we go?" Lily called. "Any direction but back," Mark answered, heart thudding with each question, each surge of hope. He didn't have all the answers, but one thing was clear. They wouldn't stop until they found safety. Finally, The faint outline of a nearby familiar building rose to meet them, an old community center that had seen better days but was vibrant with the echoes of shared laughter and connection. It felt like a sanctuary, a promise of safety amid the chaos. Inside, he urged, bursting through the doors as they flung open like they were welcoming them home. Mark felt the warmth of familiarity wash over him, memories flooding back of shared sunsets and laughter echoing in the hallways. As they fell into the forgiving embrace of the walls, fear slowly ebbed away, replaced with a flicker of reassurance. But their immediate safety didn't mean complete respite. They heard hurried footsteps echo beyond the doors, shadows looming once again in the corridor. Mark knew they could not end here. The uncertainty of their journey was still unfolding, but what mattered was that they were a family. He wouldn't let anything tear them apart now. Stay close, hold on, he whispered fiercely, his heart determined. Whatever comes next, we face it together. And as they huddled against the wall, listening to the footsteps drawing near, a sudden realization ripped through the air. He would fight for their future, for the hope of love that bound them, a bond that would light the way forward, even against the darkest nights. Hope pulsed with every heartbeat, the sweetness of dreams unwavering against the shadows. Their incredible journey was only just beginning. In that moment of fear and thrill, the spark of resilience ignited, illuminating the path ahead. There was strength in vulnerability, and through the chaos they would rise. Mark smiled down at the girls, his heart brimming with purpose. Let us take this one step at a time. This was their chapter, and it was just getting started. Now the call to action rings clear. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that lie ahead. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support, because every interaction counts. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this thrilling conclusion. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this transformation unfold. Together we can elevate the stories we love.